Hi everyone, this is Jason Zach from Nathaniel School of Music. In this lesson, the first lesson and maybe the only lesson I'll ever do, it's going to be on C major. And why there might be a few handful of reasons why you might want to actually use this scale. As you might know, some of you subscribers who've been following us for a long while, we rarely do anything on C major, maybe almost never. If we've done anything on C, let me know. We might have to change that video, transpose it or something. Just kidding. No, the main reason why we don't do C major on our channel is to just encourage students to practice on other keys and other scales, because when teachers like any of us, when we try to explain concepts on the piano, for some strange reason we bring it out on C major. Most of the exercises seem to happen on C. Now, is there some use to it? Is there some actual application to it? I don't really know. When I started playing the keyboard and the piano, it was always with singers and with bands. So I was never confined to one scale. In fact, I would rarely even play C. If I'm with a guitar player, guitar scales are E, D, G, and and maybe A. Those sort of scales are comfortable for guitar. In some cases, C, yes, but it's not compulsory that the other instruments out there are going to play C. And also with things like horn transpositions, if you play trumpet or saxophone or trombone or those sort of instruments, when you learn that instrument, if you actually blow C as your teacher told you, it's concert B flat. So if that trumpet player asks you to support him, he's happily playing on C major, which is comfortable for him. But then you have to play on B flat major to support that or to survive that. Okay. But in this lesson, we are going to stick with the key of C or all the C major notes and why it might be useful to actually practice it and what are the pros, so to speak. Okay, before we get started, it'll be nice if you can consider hitting that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon for regular notifications. Let's get cracking. So first off, spread voicing. Spread voicing of chords is basically you take a chord in the left hand, let's say C major, but when you play them as a block, the three notes C, G, it sounds very muddy. There's no clarity, it almost sounds annoying. So then you'd rather just play C or an octave or add a fifth. You tend to avoid the third. So in those cases, you could play the third not here but up. And playing on white notes, I would say white notes, not in the key of C, just white notes, just allows you to shift a 10th interval. Now I understand some of you might still not be able to stretch out your hand so much. Maybe you're a kid watching this or your hand is just smaller. So then what you could do is you could hold down the pedal, lift, just take your hand away or curve your wrist. Just do a little wrist move like this. There we go. Hold your pedal, because without the pedal, this note will jump off. Now with white notes, if you can stretch, you can play a 10th interval, you can play a 9th, you can also play octave. Octave is easy with anything. But 10th intervals, what I call as spread chords, are a lot easier with white notes. Because if I do this with D flat major, for instance, see, I just can't do it. I just cannot get there. But with C, with D minor, but D major, impossible. See, at least for me. Some people can, by the way. E major, very tough, but E minor, white notes, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished. See, so all the basic triads of C major could actually be played in spread position. It's possible. Or if not together, at least with an arpeggio glide. So the white notes make it easier to stretch in a sense. So moving on, another reason why I might want to stay in the key of C for some requirements, in the case of a bluesy slide. Now a bluesy slide could generally be considered as a movement from maybe a minor third to a major third, or a tritone to a perfect fifth. So now if you have to do this one by one, it's all the same whether you do black to white, white to white, white to black, or whatever. You don't get black to white chromatic because no two black notes are chromatically together, right? So if you want to now glide this or slide this or slip it, you can do it with just one finger. So when you land onto a white note, which is generally your C scale, even though it is possible with a two-finger slide, it's easier to kind of just slip your finger from a black note to a white note. And you can kind of only do that with a one finger slip on the C keys. So if you have to do it, then you need two fingers, which is also fine. But then you lose a resource, which is one finger. Maybe you want to do something extra. So a lot more freedom I get. Even if you do maybe two black notes, you can slide that easily. Things like that. Again, it's not that you can't do it on the other ones, but it just takes a bit more effort, I guess. For instance, if you want to do D and F sharp, the climb would end up being... So you need four fingers to actually do that slide. It's a bit trickier if you ask me. While on C, okay. And then the other thing which I feel the white note scales tend to help, be it like a C major or an A minor or maybe a D Dorian or an E Phrygian. Mind you, all the modes of C major scale are on the white notes. You have C major, D Dorian, so you have a lot of scales, E Phrygian, F Lydian, G Mixolydian, A Aeolian, B Locrian, and finally C. So with all of those white note scales, let's say you're playing let's say you just want to freely compose a lick. Let's say something like that. Now this for me to compose was very easy because it's right, because you just move your fingers, you kind of get something, whatever it may be, even though this sounded like nonsense, but you get the idea. Your fingers are a lot more free and you don't have to think much. So at the composing stage, when you just want to play freely without too much of planning or which interval should I use, maybe a lick like this would be good on white note scales. Now by that, remember, I don't mean C major. In fact, this lick is on D Dorian. Now I can easily transpose that, but playing it on this, composing it naturally on the D Dorian, will now motivate me to move it on other scales. And then will start it on D, and then I can finish. Can do faster things like so whenever I'm on this white note ecosystem, I generally tend to prefer a D Dorian. I may also prefer like or an E Phrygian. Very free to do your Phrygian licks. And Lydian would be nice for thirds. Things like that. So some open chords. Okay, and also if you want to kind of do some quick chordal motion, let's say you want to do something with quartal chords. So if you're on D Dorian again, I can take up my quartals. So I don't have to worry about shapes now. It's all one shape. Oh. Things like this. Even though you can do this, to be honest, on other keys. And in general, it is a bit tough for beginners or newcomers to the instrument to do things like to go from the thumb playing a white note, which is more natural for the thumb, to a black note. So my tip would then be, when you actually play the black note, you should curve out your thumb slightly, like you're giving someone a thumbs up. So then it becomes the same. So I guess it's a matter of time. That's why people start with the white notes and then move forward. But I've actually had no problem teaching students to play arpeggios with either white notes or black notes. It's just things like spontaneous composition for a few instances, like I showed you, linear runs. So a C major or a white note ecosystem is obviously going to be a lot more slippery when it comes to linear phrases, or when it comes to just up and down motion, So you can obviously do that a lot more freer. But I use the word slip. That means it can also slip. So when you have a good adequate number of black notes mixed with the white notes, when you have a combination, you have a good amount of grip with less slipping. So however, when you play on the white keys, I would agree, or I'll hand it to you, that there is a lot more ease of linear flow, if you want to call it that. So anything you play linearly, I guess, flows better with the white keys. But again, that's a debatable thing. You can always practice and then everything becomes the same. Okay, so moving on. So most of the classical composers or classical exercise givers, like these hand-in exercises, things like that, where you just skip one note evenly, the distance is exactly the same. It's geometrically the same. So it allows for a student to have different pitch motion without the fear of, playing a wrong note or changing position. But having said that, all exercises eventually go to a point where you should also use black notes in them. Okay, so that's a very instrument related thing. Like, for example, if I have to practice the trumpet, I'm not going to press the buttons too much. So I'm going to avoid keys like E major, F sharp major for me. I'll stick more with, B flat major, or maybe an E a D major or a G major. So there are keys that are specific to specific instruments. Okay, and the piano, maybe you do an exercise where you retain the C's and internally you do some movement, like some chromatic motion downward. A nice start could probably be the white notes, because then when you go to the black notes, it gets a bit difficult to understand what's going on. So there are some finger exercises, especially 5-finger exercises, where I'll hand it to some of you who are annoyed with me that I don't do a lot on C major, where for those 5-finger exercises, it's good to at least start on a white note. I'm not saying C major, but start on a white note. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. If you start on the black note, it might be a bit of might be a bit cluttered for some fingers because your thumb has gone on top. Okay, so whenever you do finger exercises, I think you can do it without boundaries, so to speak, if you just play on the white notes. So the last few points why you might prefer the white notes would be, it's a good start for modulation. So when you want to change keys, when you want to practice music theory, when you want to look at circle of fifths, generally people will do C and then move around the circle. Not to say that you can't start on another note, but it's just a common practice. Okay, so just keep in mind when you have a default bass system, a lot of people tend to prefer this. Also, if you want to remember a really, really tough chord like a sharp 11 or a flat 13, add 11 or add 9 or a minor 11th or whatever, it might make sense to write it on a key which is easy for you. Now, if that key happens to be C, well and good, but it could be any key, to be honest. So I'm just saying you might want to consider what your comfort zone is just for certain theoretical aspects like tough chords, practicing secondary dominance, circle of fifths where you could start with C, or even changing keys, transposing music from one to the other and whatnot. Having said all this, I have never said that you should use that useless transpose button. Please destroy it and delete it right now. Don't use it or I will find you. So you should learn on all keys. You should play on all keys, and that transpose button will definitely slow you down. It'll also mess with your brain because your brain will hear something else and your eyes are going to see something else. So it's absolutely it's a real problem. Stop using transpose. Now, a few other fun facts why C might work or why the key of C might work. It could be whichever scale, but there is something which people do a lot. So if you're in the key of C major, they do things like that's basically called a glissando, which I hate doing unless my keyboard is a bit dusty before a concert or on stage. So then I do a little glissando and then wash my hands. That's pretty much the only reason why I might do a glissando. I do it sometimes for organ playing. So with organ playing, we use the wrist, the palm area, and it kind of clutters the notes in a nice way. You get this sound. So again, nice to clean the piano, but then you can't do that on black notes. It won't work. So the glissando is generally white notes. So if you're doing it in the left, some people do it like this, but in the left hand, I prefer it with my palm, this part, the bony part. Otherwise, it'll hurt or it might cut your palm. So be careful. You want to do it here. And in the right hand, some people use their thumb. I tend to use the bony part of the index finger. So that tends to work. But like I said, I rarely do it. You could use it for, maybe rock and roll just to provide some kind of an effect. one nice thing about the glissando is if you do it well, it can be very musical. So you should time it. So at what beat are you going to start the gliss and where will you end the glissando? You should not do it randomly. Otherwise, it'll just be annoying. Especially in genres like rock and roll. But a fun fact I'd like to add and conclude with this glissando point is the black note glissando is also a lot of fun. For example, E flat pentatonic will be the glissando you form if you do all the black notes. So you can, if you're in the key of F sharp, whose relative minor is E flat, and a few other keys as well. That's actually in the key of what I'm playing. So it's kind of sounds like that. So it's kind of sounds like the annoying C glissando, but this is actually musically accurate. So people will actually think, hey, is this guy playing a fast arpeggio or what? Things like that. You don't want to overdo this, but anyway, yeah, the glissando is something we want to speak about. The last point I'd like to make before we pack up with the lesson is the key of C, whichever scale, is generally considered as a good vocal range for both genders as well as children, both male and female. So if you're doing a song with a choir or with a group of people where, people are of different genders, different age groups and whatnot. So then the C is a good starting point, even to warm up, even to do vocal exercises. C is good. However, in my humble opinion, D flat is way better. In fact, if you ask Hindustani trained musicians or maybe some Carnatic musicians, they do a lot of the raga training on C sharp or D flat. The tanpura is kind of tuned there and then they play. But a lot of Western musicians or Western songs or choirs, when they practice, they do la 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 and then they go up la 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 la. So when you do la 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 la, this works for a male register. But la 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 la, it also works for a female register. The other downside is you can't go lower. It's very tough to go low. So I like, in my opinion, I like D flat, and E flat is a very neutral scale. Versus again, it may be my own personal preference, but what I found amongst singers especially is they start with C, but then like I said, Hindustani music, you can let me know in the comments. A lot of people go through the training with D flat or C sharp as the reference. So whatever be the case, there are 12 keys in music. We are in the key of C, but then we could be playing C Locrian, which has more black notes than white notes. In fact, it has 5 black notes. So just being on C doesn't necessarily make your life easier. I've just told you, hopefully in this lesson, why if you play only white notes or predominantly white notes, there are a few advantages, which I hope I've conveyed in this lesson. It's a good starting point. It's good for spread voicing. It's good for your licks, which have slides. It's a good start for theoretical studies like modulation. And then that, at times fun glissando, which you can also do on the black keys as well, right? So that was just a rant about C. So I apologize to any of you who've been following the channel and are consistently annoyed with me that I never teach anything on C. I still haven't. This was not a tutorial on playing on C. Maybe I will get there someday, but right now I'm happy with the other keys. But like I said, all jokes aside, I do this just to encourage people who watch the channel to play on other keys. It's very crucial to be part of all the other scales: D flat, E flat, F sharp, and C. Why not? C major as well, which you might find me playing at some point in life. You never know. It might hit you. So stay tuned to our channel, subscribe, hit the bell icon for regular notifications. Then you'll know when, if, and when I ever do something on the key of C major. Okay, thanks a ton for watching the video, guys. Please support us on our Patreon channel for as low as $5 a month. And if you'd like to learn music at our school in a structured way, head over to Nathaniel School and you can choose an online or an offline semester and reach out to one of us via a form or phone, WhatsApp, or whatever. Cheers. Catch you in the next one.